In this module, we will cover the revised permitted use policy with minor modifications resulting from the ONC information blocking rule, including expansion of the limited healthcare operations use case for healthcare providers and health plans. We will then review permitted uses of data for each type of participant, application of the minimum necessary standard, and the process for accessing data covered under 42 CFR Part 2. This policy describes the specific purposes for which the participants of Health Current services may access data through the HIE in accordance with applicable law and within the technical and operational framework that Health Current and its participants can reasonably support. It also explains how Health Current may use and disclose data in connection with the HIE. Due to legal, technical, and operational limitations, access to the HIE is currently limited to participants that are healthcare providers and their designated business associates, health plans and their designated business associates, public health authorities, medical examiners, and organ procurement organizations. Each type of participant may only access data for the permitted uses that apply to them. For example, if you are a health plan, you can access data for payment and limited healthcare operations including coordination, case management, transition of care planning, and population health activities. Once data from the Health Current HIE is accessed by a participant for a permitted use, as set forth in this policy, and incorporated into a participant's electronic systems, the participant may use or disclose such data in accordance with the applicable law and participant's own policies and procedures. As explained in the HIE notice and opt-out policy, individuals have a right to opt out of having their data made accessible through the HIE, except as otherwise provided in state or federal law. Participants will not have access to data about an individual who has chosen to opt out, even in an emergency. 42 CFR Part 2 gives heightened privacy protections to substance use disorder treatment data originating from a federally assisted substance use disorder treatment facility or Part 2 program. If a participant data supplier indicates that some or all of their data is covered under 42 CFR Part 2, Health Current will restrict access to that data. Access of Part 2 data through the HIE is feasible only to those organizations who have submitted a signed Health Current Part 2 consent form for that individual. In the event of a bona fide medical emergency, medical personnel may determine that access to a patient's Part 2 record is necessary to prevent serious harm or death even though a patient is unable to give consent. Under these limited circumstances, medical personnel may break the glass and access the patient's Part 2 record in order to address the threat to life or safety. Participants that are healthcare providers or business associates acting on behalf of healthcare providers may access the data through the HIE for the following permitted uses: treatment, including care coordination, case management, and transition of care planning; payment, and limited healthcare operations, including population health activities. For each permitted use, the policy details the categories of individuals the participant may access, as well as the maximum time period for each access as set by the Health Current minimum necessary standard procedure. Participants that are health plans or business associates acting on behalf of health plans may access the data through the HIE for the following permitted uses: payment and limited healthcare operations, including coordination, case management, transition of care planning, and population health activities. For each permitted use, the policy details the categories of individuals the participant may access as well as the maximum time period for access as set by the Health Current minimum necessary standard procedure. The HIPAA minimum necessary standard applies to the payment and limited healthcare operation use cases. Specifically, healthcare provider and health plan access for payment purposes should not exceed data generated during the 13 months prior to the request. Healthcare provider and health plan access for limited healthcare operation activities should not exceed data generated during the 36 months prior to the request. A public health authority that is a participant may access data for a limited public health investigation. This use case is conditioned on there being adequate technical and/or administrative procedures in place to provide access in compliance with applicable law. A medical examiner that is a participant may access data about an individual for the purpose of determining a cause of death, conducting a death investigation, or performing other duties as authorized by state or federal law. An organ procurement organization that is a participant may access data for the purpose of facilitating organ, eye, or tissue donation and transplantation as permitted by applicable law. The HIPAA minimum necessary standard applies to the limited public health investigation, medical examiner activities, and organ procurement use cases. These use cases will limit its request to only the data needed for a particular investigation or activity. Medical examiners will limit its request to only the data needed for the activity, which was generated during the 24 months prior to the request. HealthCurrent is a business associate, and for purposes of 42 CFR Part 2, a qualified service organization of its participants. For these reasons, HealthCurrent may access, use, and disclose data only for the following permitted uses: as required by law, as necessary to perform services under the participation agreement and to assist participants and participants' business associates in the permitted uses, as directed in writing by the data suppliers that provide the data, to provide access to an individual in accordance with the individual rights policy, to provide access to authorized recipients such as insurance companies that have gone through HealthCurrent's verification process, to conduct limited healthcare operations on behalf of covered entities, including population health services, to conduct public health reporting, to facilitate health information exchange through trusted HIE connections, such as the Patient-Centered Data Home of PCDH, to create de-identified data to be used and disclosed for purposes permitted by applicable law, for HealthCurrent's own management and administration, or to carry out its legal responsibilities, including but not limited to audit, legal defense and liability, record keeping, and similar obligations. The HIPAA minimum necessary standard may apply to certain permitted uses as required by HIPAA. HealthCurrent and participants must comply with the HealthCurrent minimum necessary standard procedure when accessing data for a permitted use. HealthCurrent or any participant may propose a new use case for consideration by the HealthCurrent Data Governance Council. The new use case can be submitted through your account manager or your management team. The proposal should give specific details regarding the purpose of the new use case, which category of participants or HealthCurrent is proposed to have new access, a description of the individuals for whom data may be accessed, the types of data that may be accessed for the use case, the time for which the data may be accessed, or other criteria to be used to implement the HIPAA minimum necessary standard. If the HealthCurrent Data Governance Council recommends approval of a new use case, it will forward a completed permitted use approval checklist along with its recommendation to the Board of Directors for consideration. If a new use case is approved by the Board of Directors and is consistent with applicable law, this policy will be amended to reflect such new use case, and notice will be provided to all participants consistent with the HealthCurrent participation agreement. Thank you for watching.